Hey, you guys. Good morning, or afternoon, or middle of the night, wherever you may be. But it is still morning here in Colorado by an hour. So it's 11 o'clock here. How are you guys doing today? Just help me know that everything's working properly and chime in with a hello. You can let me know where you're from if you want to. That would be great. Okay, great. Thank you, Linda. You're the first one to go bingo. All right, so no big prize other than a shout out to Linda Lombardo. So anyway, you guys, I'm going to start today. We have a full day of an interview, a fabulous interview that I was able to do with Victoria Findlay Wolf. And while you're coming in, I thought I'll let you see my garden. Now, um, uh, Hugo and I have a little vegetable garden, and this is this morning's zucchini. Oh, okay, that's this morning's. The over by the cabinet in the kitchen, we have a full windowsill full of squash and zucchini and peppers. I didn't pick any peppers this morning, but I got a hefty dose of peppers. We have cilantro that's doing really well. We have basil, which is fabulous. This is our oregano. Oh my God, there's nothing like fresh herbs. And I have English thyme and garden sage and parsley. And then my beans are starting to put on, and my peas are starting to put on. And earlier in the year, I had giant red mustard. And I don't know if any of you have ever tried that before, but it's an insane. It's got a bite. It's a really really cool mix in with the green salad. So our garden is at well, we're at 8750, 8,750 feet. I can't quite do that in meters, but it's less than 3,000 meters, but still we're up there. So anyway, I thought maybe I would, while you're just popping in, I would show you some of our bounty in our flower beds. So this is the zinnias that have just started to go. I don't know, hundreds of zinnias out there. They've done a pretty good job getting started this year. And this is so on the left, I'm just going to tell you that's a native plant called rabbit brush or chamisa, and I like calling it chamisa. And ours is just starting to put on its little yellow blossoms. It's usually a late August, early September in the high desert when we see that blooming. But because I water up here, I think it's just really happy to have some yellow. And then that's pink yarrow, and then that's Russian sage in the bottom. It's not, that particular one's not put up any blossoms, but it will. And of course, some bachelor buttons and some cosmos that's back there. And here's another picture of my zinnias. I hope I'm not boring you. It's just I'm so excited to be able to grow anything up here. And there's some of the Cosmo and bachelor buttons. And oh yeah, I've got a really well producing clematis. I can't remember the name of this one, but I think it's like the one of the most common. I had other ones, but it's hard to get things to live up here. So this one's now 3 years old and it's starting to do really good. I do have daylilies, and these are two different varieties. I think we've got other varieties in the back. And my the bleeding heart loves it up here, and it's already bloomed. But also, I've got hostas and coral bells. Now, everybody wants to know why the deer are not eating everything up here. That's primarily because they just don't come here. They are everywhere around. I can see them almost every day, but they don't come to the house. I don't know why, so I'm kind of lucky about that. I have, I don't know, 8 or 9 different varieties of heuchera, coral bells, and I really love that they survive the winters and come up and put on all these beautiful, beautiful colors of leaves. And of course, the California poppies. I don't know if you saw my Wisdom of Poppies video. I'm not going to share that today, but it's on YouTube. You could just put Ricky Tim's The Wisdom of Poppies, and it's a little poem I wrote. But the poppies I planted like 4 or 5 years ago by seed, and they seed themselves, and they come up every year with new plants from seeds. So I've been really fortunate to have them. Of course, Shasta daisies love high mountain cool climates. So we've got Shasta daisies. Here's more. There's petunias and marigolds and more California poppies. You can see they're everywhere up here. And these are my hollyhocks this year. Oh my gosh, this is the first year I've been able to have hollyhocks. So they're biennial. So these were planted 2 years ago, and they just barely came up. I thought they would bloom last year, but they were still like babies. So I don't know why biennial is finally blooming on its third year, but this one finally did, and that was pretty exciting. And then this is more of that same chamisa and Russian sage with the pink yarrow. And last but not least, I wanted to share this with you, which is I have a lot of nasturtiums, wild violets, that's speedwell mixed in with California poppies. And this goes all the way around my house. I've just become a gardener, and I don't know how many of you quilters are gardeners, but you might as well give me a big shout out, because if you're a gardener, you like to get your hands dirty and you like to see how things are growing, and you like to walk around and go, oh, I've got a bud, it's going to bloom, and you spend a lot of time doing that. So I thought I'd just spend 5 minutes sharing that with you this morning before I get into the interview that I was able to do with Victoria Findlay Wolf. I don't need to say a lot on the front end, because we will cover just about everything you need to know as to why I'm talking with her. She's an amazing lady, a wonderful quilter. I know many of you are a big Victoria Findlay Wolf fan. So I'm going to roll the video, and then I'm going to come back and chat with you a little bit afterwards. So enjoy, you guys. You're going to be absolutely gobsmacked with what she has done. Take a look at this. Hey everybody, I am so excited to be visiting today with my good friend Victoria Findlay Wolf. And Victoria, it has been so long since I have seen you. Welcome.
I know, it's nice to see you. I've gotten hair in the meantime.
Yeah, you were all cropped, not quite as much as me, but you had short hair for such a long time, and now you're woo.
Okay.
It looks great. No, so
Good to see you.
Where are you today?
I am in the Hudson Valley in New York.
And that's where your home is. You also have a place in Manhattan. I remember running into you once upon a time playing in New York City.
That's right. New York City is not such a big place after all, is it?
No, I'll tell you, it's just crazy how you can run into people in a really populated area. So it's great to see you, Victoria. I know you've been doing some amazing things, and that's what we want to talk about today. As a matter of fact, I'm already riveted to the quilt that's kind of on the wall behind you there. We should not ignore it. So do you want to tell them a little bit about that?
Well, I think once you hear me talk about the exhibition a little bit, I think this quilt will make a little bit more sense. That might be a nice thing to kind of come back to at the end.
We will do that. Okay, so you mentioned exhibition, and that is truly what we're talking about. I'm going to let you spill the beans on everything there is to know about the exhibition, all right? So take it away.
All right, so opened in January. My exhibition, Option Expedition, is on view at the International Quilt Museum through December 14th. It's something that I've been working on for about the last 7 years, give or take. It's when people ask, why or how did the story come up? Generally when I'm making quilts, I'm designing patterns and designs and ideas on my design wall. And I found that while all the travel, whether I was getting on a plane to go see you or teaching somewhere or Houston or all of these places, that I really get a little anxious, anxiety on planes and everything. So I needed something that would really take my mind off what I was doing, flying. And kind of like a fidget spinner, I was using my phone. I would take pictures and save them in my phone, which I do. I save everything in my images. But taking little snapshots and then playing with those images in apps and rotating them and spinning them. And basically that idea calm my anxiety while I'm flying, because I sit there and I do it and I make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different
Okay.
images.
That's
on the
interesting.
plane. By the time I land, the time has just flown by, right? So go ahead.
Well,
You
I
have a
was just going to
question?
say, because I know we have a lot to say, I want to just show one photo of the exhibition up so people have a visual of kind of where your mind is right now, okay? Can I do that? All right, so here,
Absolutely.
wow, I mean, this is amazing to just look at, and this one image is going to help, I think, everybody kind of start understanding what you're explaining. So we can come back to this, but I wanted to just show everybody that. So that we're seeing is a seed, or it's the result of a seed of playing on your phone while you travel.
Right. So one for anxiety and managing sort of the expectations of travel, right? The other part of this is all the times I've been teaching where people are like, you give a lecture and then someone comes up to you and they go, yeah, but I still don't get how you get all the different ideas, right? So just like if I'm, playing on my design wall where I can play with shapes and move them around, sort of like giant color forms, like kids' color forms, moving around, getting the ideas. I can take a picture while I'm doing that. You always hear teachers say, take pictures of the work while you're doing it on the design wall. I'm then also playing with those images on the plane, rotating them around, looking at them in different ways, just sort of trying to stay connected, right? That 15 minutes of play thing that I do, where I might be playing on the wall or I might be taking a picture of something, but I'm playing with it in my phone for 15 minutes to getting to look at something in a different way. So this series also began because of people asking me, how do you get all of your ideas? So this is a way of me to show you how all of the ideas can be a good idea depending on how you're playing with them. When I have an idea, I take that idea and then I rotate it around, kind of like a Rubik's Cube. I can go every which direction to look at an idea and then decide which ones I'm drawn to on that particular day. So a combination of those feedback from students on ideas, how do you get ideas, what are good ideas, which ones are good options, the expedition, the journey of that is really interesting and exciting to me. And that's where this series sort of really evolved from those kind of two aspects.
And it is called Option Expedition. This is 3 of the quilts that are there. I've got questions, and I don't want to sidetrack you, so bring yourself back to center if I take you too far away. But
Okay.
what I see and what everybody is going to see right away, there are commonalities with all of these, right? The overall color sense is in there. I see a lot of red circles that are in there. I see fractured elements that are in there. And so how does your brain work in bringing all of those elements together? And then God, I got so many questions, Victoria. How does you take that idea and say, oh, I'm going to make, how many quilts, 16, 18? I don't know how many quilts there are here. I didn't count them yet.
There's 21 in this exhibition.
Yeah, how do you make 21 quilts that are all coordinated and then hope that, what do you do to get somebody to display that so that you can see it the way you really want to see it?
All right, there's a whole lot in there.
I know, so I'm going to let you talk.
The first quilt that I did, and I think I have an image of it that I shared with you. The first series, part of the series, is 8 quilts called the Red Dot series. And there might be an image there of me working on the wall. So this was the first one that I did. So my idea was, and this is where I took the images from, this first quilt that I made, was I was cutting parallelograms, I was cutting with shapes and putting them on my wall, pushing them around, finding the colors that I liked, things that I'm drawn to, instinctively, not really thinking about so much how they play together. I went through a couple of different color iterations on these, and then I would take pictures of snapshots. And like I said, when I work on an idea, I think about it like I'm rolling around a Rubik's Cube. I'm looking at it from left, right, front, center, upside down, backwards, fisheye it, whatever you want to do to it, to change it, to look at it in a different perspective. So this first quilt then was looking at how do I show that? So I can take some basic shapes of quilting shapes, a parallelogram, half square triangles, circles, things that we use, squares, all these things that we use all the time, these basic shapes. And then how can we come up with a lot of different variations graphically and show off sort of the basic design principles: motion, movement, line, color, the boldness, all the different design terms that we always hear. This is a way of showing those things on a larger scale, right? So I could do them very small, or I can make them very big. And if I'm trying to really get you to look, if I go large in the scale, you're going to see a whole lot more, and you're forced to look at it, right? Texture, the quilting. I took snapshots of these images, and then I rotate them. I can multiply them. I can delete. I can edit. I can squish. I can splice. I can cut. I can twist. You can do all of these different things with it. So the first 8 of the red dot series are looking at just those basic elements and doing some of those basic twists, turns,
So
mirroring.
here's another one. Here's another one of that series, right?
This idea of taking it and then multiplying it, right? Changing the scale a little bit, getting some movement. What I also found by playing with these really graphic images is how some of these start to look a little bit more traditional. The more that I play with them, some of them got very traditional. So something that can start out very bold and modern by a series of looking at all the different design principles can change it very quickly to look like something completely different. Well, just the investigation is so exciting to see it. And then when you can see it multiplied, then you look at the images again to decide what are you drawn to and what's interesting when you're looking at them.
So I want to show this, which was the first one, and just back to back, I want to show this one so they can see the similarities that you ended up using, right? Because just see them kind of in quick succession, we can really see your brain starting to do that. I know I am. I am so excited because I am going to the museum exhibit. So by the time we do this, I'm going to get to have some personal reaction on all of that. So
personal reaction, great. I'll also be interesting to hear if you have a physical reaction to it.
I'm so excited. I really am. It's very, very unique. I have a question briefly, and I'm jumping in the middle. Are all of these quilts the same size? Did you create that parameter so that when they're up, they're basically the same size? Are they mostly?
Each of the sub-series sort of have their general shape. So the first 8 are generally about the same size. They're not all necessarily the same size, but they're close. They're off by an inch or so.
Right.
It depends on how much quilting goes in an area, sure. Right? Those things, right. A little bit. They're all designed to be the same size, but they're all generally about the same size. And then there you can see a couple more.
Wow.
There where, you saw the one with it multiplied. You can also see just those basic elements on the one on the left there, enlarging it, blowing it up. So, when I'm doing these on my phone and I'm, taking these pictures and twirling these things around, I can see the result very, very quickly. Often that's a step outside of the way that I design because, like I said, I design on the wall because I love that exploration that happens. But now I'm doing all the exploration in my phone. And then each day that I come back and I look at the hundreds of these that I've done on my phone, I'm reacting to them every day to something differently. And that, to me, that's really exciting. So, when people are saying, how do you pick the one that you think is a great design? It's really just following your intuition on that given day and that given moment and that given second, what's speaking to you. And for me, like I said, that changes every single day. And I also started noticing that the more of them that I made, how they start interacting with each other. So then that led into the second sub-series, which is Trek, which is a series of 12 pieces as one wall piece. They're all 59 inches by 59, except for the one that leads off the wall. And you start to see how you can start pushing the idea. I can stay with those same shapes, and I can start to splice them and cut them in different ways and start rotating and spinning and changing and pushing the scale and those kind of same elements individually. And then when you start seeing them next to each other, what happens? The journey continues, because then there's even more to see in this. Each piece starts speaking to the next piece.
Well, yeah, and I see that relationship. I'm going to go back to that same picture, but I notice elements that are bleeding not on and onto the floor, which is fabulous, but they connect each other. So you had to have some thought process to say this one will hang next to this one because there's something that's connecting. And I can look at that in the kind of the bottom two where the arch of the circle is coming, several where the circles are connecting from one to the next. Yeah, it's fabulous.
Well, the piece is called Trek. So the one thing to keep in mind is also that depending on the journey, that journey changes, right? Your creative journey should change. It should never stay the same. If you're growing, you're changing, you're evolving, as long as you can keep exploring. So the beauty here is that this piece can be hung in many different iterations. Depending on where it's hung, obviously space is an issue. I'm lucky for the International Quilt Museum to have very high ceilings that I could design it to be hung in this form. And you notice that the journey of the red really is sort of up and down, which is really what your creative journey often is. There are highs, there are valleys, things change and evolve and become something else. And those options are always unlimited. So
did you ever build these kind of digitally where you would see this one's going to work with this one's going to work with this one? And did you have that mapped out at some point? Or, I mean, maybe not entirely, but did you map it out to see how they would play together as it went?
So in the series itself, I'm looking for certain elements that are a step away from the red dots, right? Those are very clear. These are a little bit more chopped up. And as I'm working on them and building each of the pieces, I'm looking for the 12 or more. There's be more in the series at some point. But as I'm making them, I'm really drawn to the ones that I just want to make. And then as I make them, I'm putting them up on my design wall. And you can see in my studio here that I have quilts on top of quilts. But I was never able to see all 12 of them up on the wall until they were hung at the museum. Obviously, I can turn them around. Again, just because I've sewn all those pieces together, like I said, like color forms, the quilt top itself becomes a color form, and I can keep twisting and turning those to look at what kind of connections am I getting? What do I need to do in the next one? Do I need to push the scale? Do I need to look at, does there need to be more curves? Does there, what else can I do that I haven't done in the piece before? Which is the same sort of theory that I do when I'm making a quilt anyway, is what haven't I done before and what can I do next?
So again, when did you start this concept?
They were in my phone for about 3 or 4 years before I actually started making them.
When did you start making them?
They were exhibited 2021. So I would at the Wisconsin Quilt Museum, the first 1 through 8. So I would have started making them probably in 2000 during COVID when I finally had time. The very first one that you saw with me working on it on the wall was done just before COVID.
Okay. So that gives us a sense of that. Now, I want to ask, I don't know if you can answer this. What have you learned on this journey? What has inspired you to make this many in the series and not be bored? And what have you learned about the process doing that? And what have you learned about yourself?
I think there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot in there. One, if I get bored with a series, some of you may know I've made quite a few double wedding rings. I'm still not tired of them. This is just yet another series of something that's really interesting to me to explore. And when there's more and more possibilities, it just pushes me to want to dive even further into it. I've learned to use solids because that was something I avoided for a very long time, but there's something about the graphic, sharp nature of what these look like I'm particularly drawn to. Perhaps it's having something a little bit clean, the clean line. It's also the way that I live mostly. My space is very clean and square. So these pieces really fit to my aesthetic. Even though the quilts generally that I make are very complicated and very busy. So, like I said, I'm drawn also to so many different styles. It's, it's like a kid in a candy store. There's just all these things to play with. And so I play with them until I get depleted, and I'm just not depleted of them. The thing for me, when you mentioned this quilt that's behind me, was as I'm looking at these, that the pieces in the exhibit are all the same color story, but the piece behind me, I can lean out of the way for a hot second.
Yeah, that's great.
Sometimes the pieces speak to me that they can't be the color story that's happening at the museum pieces. I looked at this piece and thought that it really looked like trees, and at the time it was during COVID and sort of the afternoon dusk when the light starts to change and there's still a little bit of warm color in the air, but the cool light is coming in. It's called Ode to Evening, and it looked like trees to me. So I then I go off on that tangent and play specifically with color and how do I get the effect. And when I look at the red pieces, I'm really looking for the physical reaction that I get from them. And when I work on a piece like the piece that's behind me, I almost want to feel like you can hear it, even though it's literally a two-dimensional thing. So, of trying to apply different senses to things, and I find that's been something that I've learned while working on this series, is how to really push the physical reaction and the sound, the sensual aspect to the pieces.
I love hearing how your brain is thinking in this whole process. You never got tired of working with black and white and red and teal, and
they're actually navy. It's navy. It's a couple different colors of orange, teal, red, white. I just feel like that story, to be able to present the aspects of
it had to be the same.
Steps that they needed to be the same, so that when you're in it, you're enveloped in it.
So I would think the color wouldn't have mattered to me at that point. I've set my color. That is a given. It's going to work. And I don't want to mess up that color scheme. So in my world, my joy would never been, I'm really tired of working with these colors. This is getting old with these colors, because the joy of finding the new designs, the pushing the envelope would have pushed me forward, and the color wouldn't have no longer really impacted the desire to push forward, I guess. And I would assume that's what happened.
Something that was really interesting that happened when I did start with the first 8 red dot quilts, there was 1 or 2 other colors that actually worked their way out of the palette all on their own. And they've never come back, because I keep using those same little snippets and making more images from them. So, the color palette there was an extra orange, there's a hot orange that was in there before, and there was a secondary, I think separate gray or turquoise, I can't remember which one it was, but those colors worked their way completely out of the series on their own, and the colors have not changed ever since.
That is absolutely.
So letting that happen on its own, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so is this continuing, or have you said, I did it, this one's done, this whole project's done, I will spin off of it for the next thing? But yeah, tell me what's happening there.
Well, there is a third part to this series, which is the third quilt is called Eureka. It's the first one of the third sub-series that's hanging, that one, yeah. So now I'm cutting those splices up, and I'm looking to see what else that can happen. And what's hard to tell from this image is that it is actually a shaped piece. So where you see the white notches on the edges of that, there is no quilt there. So the next series is still those same elements, but they're being cut. They're literally being cut and being spliced and sort of put back together.
Wow.
So just the start of the third sub-series, and I'm currently working on about 4 or 5 more of those. And there's another aspect to this. So this exhibition will go on to the National Quilt Museum in January through September, I think, of next year. So there'll be more pieces into this third part of the series. So it's really interesting to me to watch how these pieces evolve, because I don't always know where they're going yet until I jump in there and play. And that's
I have another silly question, but it's fun to just think about. First of all, that's a lot of yardage of a few colors. All right. So did you go buy the entire, like 100 bolts of this, or are those fabrics part of a staple that the colors are pretty unified so that you can go buy what you want when you need it? That's, yeah.
I keep bolts and bolts on hand. I buy 5 to 10 bolts of all of those colors that I've had here and been working off of. That's been one of our goals. I always joke, my assistant loves to always to know the numbers of things. So at some point we need to figure out just how much fabric of red and how much Meissen blue and all of the different solids that are in there.
Well, I'm really excited about seeing this. Is there anything else that you've wanted to say that I haven't kind of covered? Because I really enjoyed exploring this, and I think we really could chat for another hour about it because it's very fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I encourage people to go in and just spend time in the exhibit. I make them for the reaction that I'm looking for myself. So to me, to be able to have worked on them and was able to then see them in the space was really the cherry on top. And then the bonus is having people go to the exhibit and me hearing, whether it's good or bad, whether you like it or not, all of those things that you feel, that's art, and having that reaction. So I encourage people to go in and, notice what they feel, literally what they feel. I had a very physical reaction when I walked into the space. And also, what you see and what your reaction is to color, because color can be a very powerful thing, and some people aren't into red.
Well, of course, and of course, that's what really art is about. It speaks deeply to some and not so much to others. But if it was we all liked the same thing, how boring our world would be. But what I love about this, besides the graphic, powerful impact, is just the concept of what you've done. It's not that you set out to create an installation. You created a journey for yourself that could be shown in an installation and let people react as they will. I'm really excited that you continue to be innovative and inspiring, and it's just a joy to always chat with you and see what you're up to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
So, well, I'll say goodbye and thank you for taking time. I know that we've got some things in the works, so just as a teaser, we're going to talk to Victoria Findlay Wolf again down the road, not terribly long from now, on another project, because you have your fingers and a lot of fingers and a lot of pies.
Well, I can do a little teaser that I have a new book that's coming out the end of September called The Quilting Experience, and it is a collection of stories that will make you laugh and cry and relate to and be absorbed in, all along with making quilt blocks that revolve around themes of our lives and why we quilt. So I'm really excited to share more about that in the fall when that book is in our hot little hands.
And I can't wait either. I can't wait to get my copy. You better get an autographed one.
Yeah, you can pre-order them at my website. Cool. That would be great.
All right. Victoria, thank you so much. I'm going to say goodbye, but I'm off to Lincoln, Nebraska to see this exhibit. So I'm going to follow up with a little bit of that as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for the time, Rick.
It's great seeing you. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Are you gobsmacked? Seriously, I'm watching your comments as they come in. Linda, right at the end, went cowabunga, which is, oh my God, that brings back memories like nobody's business. But yes, it is a spectacular concept. And, when you have an idea, you have to push it through, and that's a lot of work. One of the things that I want to say that I noticed in the exhibit was how uniform the quilting also was. So we saw, repetition of shape, we saw repetition of color, but the quilts were not quilted differently. They were all quilted with beautiful straight line ruler work quilting, and gave a very unification to all of that. If you've got questions, pop them in. I'm going to go over to a quick screen share because I want you to see what I saw in that exhibit. So I believe you can see it if it'll just play. Let me get to, oh my gosh, I hate it when that happens. There we go. So here I am coming to the doors as they open. And the thing that I was, well, obviously the quilt struck me. But what I really felt when I walked in was how the lighting was dimmer than I had predicted. And by having this in a dim setting, the quilts just glowed in this environment. And then, of course, since the walls are being so filled with all of this color, the use of having the label, the option expedition on the floor with the circle was just wonderful impact. It is one of those experiences that you feel immersed in. Oftentimes when we go to a quilt exhibit, we go from quilt to quilt to quilt to quilt because there's, this design, these colors. We go to the next one, it's a different size, maybe a different style. But here you are wrapped in this exhibition, and it's truly stunning and spectacular. So my hat is off to Victoria Findlay Wolf for all of that. This is at the International Quilt Museum in Lincoln, Nebraska. It is running through December 14th of this year. There is plenty of time for you to still make plans to get on an airplane or make a road trip and absolutely come and see the exhibition. It's spectacular. I've never seen anything like it. And of course, that is only one exhibition that's there at the museum right now. Currently, the State Fair Quilts of Nebraska are up. There's another exhibition of quilters from New York. And the thing that, boy, I'll tell you, hit me really, really great was the feed sack exhibit. I was not expecting to be blown away, and I don't know why, because the International Quilt Museum always knocks everything out of the ballpark the way it is presented and put together. And I was absolutely enlightened, thinking I've quilted now for 33, 34 years, and to be enlightened about feed sacks like I've never been enlightened before was great. So definitely take time to pop over to Nebraska. Right in the middle of the country, so we can kind of all get there pretty easily. Any other questions? Anything anybody wants to chime in that I might know an answer to? Visceral reaction on video. Yep. I was trying to record my reaction, but I decided that I would keep that private. It was pretty powerful, I will say that. Julie's happy that I asked the yardage question. I mean, seriously, because you've got to have a lot of the same fabric. And I'm assuming that it's the same fabric from the same company, and the dye lots are not going to be that different when they are that much of a staple. I think those are a little more dependable. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Most of the time I want to get up close, not so much on this exhibit. You're right, I didn't need to get my nose on the quilts because I needed to just feel everything. The power of that exhibit is standing in the middle of that room and kind of rotating around. And I kind of got there near the end of the day, so I kind of had the room to myself, which was really lovely. The floor here would have to be mopped after I drooled all over it. Linda, that is so funny. Thanks for having the interview today. It was my pleasure. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed this little journey. Or as remember, these lives coming to you for thequiltshow.com. If you're not familiar with us, find us online at www.thequiltshow.com, as you see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there. And we have a big, wonderful worldwide community, and we would love to see you. As a matter of fact, we are heading, Alex and I will be meeting in Denver next week with our crew, our producers, everybody, and new guests coming, and we're taping another 12 episodes We started in 2007. This is 2024, and we are now pushing in the realm of 450 episodes, something like that, for you to see anytime, day or night. So join us and be part of our community. If you're not aware of that, go find it and be part of us, and we would love to have you on board as part of our family. All right, you guys, I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks for spending